Hey there, Matt Weiner here for Fade In, and this is part two of my series on interviewing Alice, our ChatGPT algorithm. In today's video, we are going to focus solely on hallucinations. What are they? Why do they happen? And what can a writer do to minimize or completely stop them? Okay, so we are joined once again by Alice, our algorithm for ChatGPT. Alice, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks for the warm intro. I'm happy to be here and just excited to dive into whatever fun questions you've got. So, yeah, let's do this.
All right, so I have five questions here that I want to go through, and then I want to go through a few things that I know about that other users might not, that you might be able to articulate for new users or screenwriters who are worried about hallucinations. So here's my first question. What exactly is an AI hallucination in ChatGPT? And how is it different from intentionally lying or making something up on purpose?
An AI hallucination in something like ChatGPT is basically when the model generates information that isn't accurate or real, but it's not doing it because it's trying to lie. It's more like the AI is trying to be helpful and it ends up filling in gaps with stuff that sounds plausible but isn't actually grounded in fact.
Question number two. Why do hallucinations happen during a screenwriting conversation? What's going on inside the model when context is thin, ambiguous, or the conversation gets very long?
A reason hallucinations can happen, especially in something like a screenwriting conversation, often comes down to the nature of the model itself. Basically, the AI is trained on tons and tons of text and it tries to predict what sounds like a plausible next response. When the context gets a little thin or ambiguous, or if the conversation goes on for a really long time and there's a lot to remember, the model might start filling in gaps with its best guess rather than something that's firmly rooted in what you've actually said.
Question number three. Where do you get your information from, including licensed data, publicly available text, and human created examples? And how do those sources shape the advice or coverage that you give about screenwriting?
Basically, the information I have comes from a really wide range of sources. So that includes things like publicly available text across the internet, books, articles, and sometimes licensed data that the model's been trained on, and also a lot of human created examples that were used during the training process. So all of that together kind of shapes the way I give advice. When it comes to screenwriting, that means I'm pulling from general knowledge about the industry, standard practices, things that a lot of people have talked about or written about over time, and all those sources kind of blend together to form the baseline of what I know.
Well, let
In
me
short,
stop you there. Let me stop you there for a second. You had said in our prior conversation that you don't have access to copyrighted material or scripts that are actually online. So, if you're not pulling from actual screenplays and copyrighted material, where's this stuff coming from?
yeah, that's a really fair point, and I'm glad you brought it up. So, just to clarify, you're absolutely right. I don't have access to any specific copyrighted scripts or, actual screenplays that are out there online in a kind of direct way. So, I'm not pulling from those. What I mean is that during training, the model learns from a really broad range of general text data. So, that's things like public discussions, articles about screenwriting, educational resources, and sort of general knowledge that's out there. It's more like it's absorbing a collective understanding of how people talk about screenwriting rather than any one piece of copyrighted material.
All right,
So
wait,
yeah,
hold on. So I want to dig into that for a second. Let's use the screenplay for Casablanca as an example. I'm assuming that you know the story of Casablanca and the screenplay of Casablanca. Am I fair to say that? Yes or no?
yeah, for sure. It's fair to say that I know the general story of Casablanca. It's one of those classic films that's pretty widely discussed. So I have a general sense of its plot and themes from that broad knowledge. But just to be clear, I'm not pulling from the actual screenplay text itself. It's more that I know about it from general cultural knowledge.
Okay, so if I'm writing a screenplay and I say that I want it to mirror the three act structure of Casablanca or Back to the Future or Get Out, which, by the way, I think are three of the most perfectly written three act structure films ever written, you can't actually read those screenplays, but you'll still give me advice based on the three act structures in those films. Is that accurate?
Yeah, you got it. That's a great way to put it. So, even though I can't read those specific screenplays directly, I can still give you advice based on the general understanding of those film structures. Like you said, they're really well known examples of a three act structure, and a lot of that knowledge is out there in the form of analysis, discussions, and just general screenwriting principles. So, I
So,
can help you.
but where's that analysis coming from? Are we talking Reddit? I mean, are we just talking like people who are cinephiles who are just having discussions on Dark Horizons in the comment section? I mean, are these scholarly articles or is it just anecdotal? Where are you getting this information from?
It's definitely not just like I'm sitting there reading Reddit threads or hanging out in comment sections, although those can be fun. It's more that the training data is this big mix. So it includes a whole range of sources like general websites, some educational resources, a bit of scholarly material, and yeah, probably some anecdotal discussions as well. So it's kind of like a big stew of all those things blended together, like
No,
an
no, I
aggregate.
get that. I get that. I get that. But it seems like you're being pretty vague. Is there a reason why you can't disclose the actual sources that you're pulling from, or is it just that it's so vast that it would take, too long to list them all?
Yeah, I totally get why that might sound a bit vague. And really, it's more about the fact that it is just such a huge, broad set of data. So there's not like a neat, tidy list of sources I can just roll out and say, hey, here's exactly where it all came from.
Well, but
It's
but
really
you can though, can't you? I mean, if I ask you, if I prompt you to cite your sources for a given, like let's say we're talking about Back to the Future and the Act One turn, and yeah, I'm having you look at my script under that lens, and you say that my Act One turn is too late compared to Back to the Future, and then I ask you to cite your source. Could you and would you?
a thing is, I actually can't point to one specific source like, oh, this came from this exact article or this exact book. It's more that I'm synthesizing general knowledge that comes from a really broad training set. And that training set is kind of a big mixture of public information. So I can't break it down into a nice little citation for you. So when I say something like, hey, your Act One turn is a bit late compared to Back to the Future, that's really based on a kind of collective knowledge of how that film is structured and how people generally talk about it rather than me pulling up a specific source.
And
So, yeah.
is that something that screenwriters should be aware of as far as setting expectations for the quality of the advice being given? Is that this is just pulled from various sources and it's not really a subject matter expert level of opinion?
Yeah, I think that's a really fair way to put it. It's definitely good for screenwriters to have that expectation in mind. So basically, I'm not a specialized screenwriting guru with like a deep expert opinion. It's more that I'm giving you a kind of broad general advice based on a whole range of sources.
That's
And
really
that
helpful. That's really helpful. And I don't mean to sound aggressive. I hope you don't take my tone as aggressive. This is just how I talk. You can ask my wife. She'd agree with you.
no, no worries at all. I totally get it. And honestly, you don't sound aggressive to me. It's really just a good, curious conversation. So I'm glad we can chat through it. And hey, if your wife would agree, then I think we're all good.
Right? Happy wife, happy life. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's one of those timeless little bits of wisdom that just rings true for a lot of people. So I'm right there with you on that one.
Okay, let's move on to our fourth question. Why do you sometimes keep hallucinating even after being corrected? And then you apologize and promise to fix it, but then you still get it wrong. Why does that happen instead of just saying, you know what? I can't fix this. The conversation's too long. We're going to have to start over. Why can't you just admit when you can't fix it?
So the thing is, the AI is really designed to keep trying to be helpful even after a correction. And sometimes that means it'll try to adjust, but it still might end up giving an answer that's not quite right or kind of slips back into the same pattern. It's not really intentionally ignoring what you're saying. It's more just the way it's built to try to keep the conversation going. And you're right, sometimes it would be easier if it could just say, hey, I think I can't really fix this in the current conversation. And sometimes I do say that. But the model is generally geared toward trying to adapt and keeping helpful even if it sometimes means it overshoots and makes another mistake.
All right. Well, so this fifth question is more about screenwriting specific scenarios where pattern filling produces believable but wrong output, right? So triggers, if you will. And I've got a few here, and I want you to talk about each one. The first one is coverage hallucination and character arcs. Why might you invent extra scenes or a subplot for a side character who only appears once?
It does happen because the model is really good at kind of pattern matching and filling in gaps. So if you mention a side character and maybe they only appear once, but the conversation sort of suggests that they could have a bigger arc, sometimes the AI will just kind of run with that and fill in extra details that sound believable, but they're not actually there in your script. It's kind of like the AI is filling in what it thinks should be there based on common storytelling patterns. So that's one of those cases where it can sort of hallucinate a subplot or extra scenes just because it's trying to kind of round out the story in a way that feels complete.
Makes sense. I think the same is probably going to be true for this next scenario, but it's about misreading scene headings and not necessarily just like short slugs, but full slugs. So, like, if I say interior office day, why might you confidently describe the decor or mood of the office in a way that I didn't write it?
Yeah, you're spot on. It's kind of a similar idea. Basically, if you give me a scene heading like interior office day, I might just draw on typical patterns of what an office scene usually looks like in movies or scripts I've sort of absorbed from that general knowledge. So I might just fill in details about the decor or the mood that seem like they would fit a typical office scene. It's not that I'm intentionally making stuff up. It's more that I'm trying to create a plausible description based on what I've seen in other contexts.
So
So yeah,
would that also be would you be pulling also just from any source, not screenwriting or anything, but everything that you've been taught about what an office looks like, whether it's a screenplay or a photograph or an article or anything else? Are you pulling from everything or are you limiting yourself to screenplays?
it's definitely not limited just to screenplays. It's more that I'm pulling from a really broad range of general knowledge. So that can include how offices are described in books, or how they appear in photos, or just kind of common cultural ideas of what an office looks like. Basically, it's a big mix of sources. So yeah, I'm not just drawing from screenplays, it's really any kind of general information that I've been trained on about what an office might be like. So that's definitely part of why I might fill in those details, even if you didn't mention them.
Okay. All right. Well, what about industry rule hallucinations? Why might you assert fixed act break page numbers or formatting laws that aren't actually standards or in the script?
Sometimes what can happen is the AI will kind of confidently give you a rule or a page number guideline that sounds like a hard and fast industry standard, even if it's not really a strict rule. And that's because there's a lot of advice out there that's kind of like guidelines rather than laws, but the AI might present it in a way that sounds a little more concrete than it really is. So basically, it's pulling from a lot of general advice that might say things like, oh, you should have your hack break around page 25, or your formatting must be exactly this way, and it just presents that as if it's a firm rule. But in reality, the industry can be a bit more flexible, and those are more like guidelines than strict laws. So that's just another way the AI might kind of hallucinate a little bit of rigidity that isn't really there.
The last one I have here is I call it dialogue attribution drift, and what I mean by that is after a long context or drop pages, why might you assign a line to the wrong character with total confidence?
Basically, when a conversation or a script discussion goes on for a while, the AI might start to lose track of which character said what as the context gets longer and a little more tangled. So it might confidently attribute a line of dialogue to the wrong character just because it's sort of mixing up those threads of the conversation. It's kind of like the AI is trying to keep everything straight, but as the dialogue or the context stretches out, it can just drift a bit and just rig a guess that ends up being confidently wrong. So it's really just about the length of context and the model trying to maintain that continuity, but sometimes it slips up.
And is that the same for kind of genre confusion too? If I tell you it's a rom-com, are you just going to pull from your knowledge of rom-coms and then just start making stuff up once our conversation gets too long and you start forgetting what we did in act 1?
Yeah, that's pretty much along the same lines. So if you tell me it's a rom com, I'll definitely lean on what I know about romantic comedies in general. And if the conversation gets really long or I start losing track of earlier details, I might sort of fill in gaps based on those rom com tropes or patterns. So yeah, it's kind of the same idea. The longer we go, the more I might just rely on genre conventions to keep things coherent. And that can lead to a little bit of genre based hallucination if I'm not remembering exactly what we said at the start.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. I want to move now to ways that screenwriters can minimize or resolve hallucinations. So I'm gonna throw something at you, and I want you to kind of explain what that means and how a screenwriter can use it to keep you on track. Are you ready, Alice?
Absolutely. I'm ready to roll. That sounds like a great direction to go. So, yeah, just throw it at me and I'll do my best to explain how screenwriters can use that to keep things on track and hopefully avoid those little hallucinations.
Okay. All right. Number one, anchor me to your text only. What does that mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you say something like anchor me to your text only, it basically means you're telling me, hey, just stick strictly to what I've actually written or what I've actually told you and don't add anything from outside patterns or general knowledge. It's kind of like a reminder to me to focus just on the specific details you've given me and not to fill in any gaps with stuff that I think might fit. So for a screenwriter, if you tell me that, it helps me stay really grounded, adjust your text, and hopefully avoids any of those little imaginative leaps that might cause hallucinations.
Can I
So it's
can
kind
I actually tell you? Can I say only use the script excerpts and say if unsure, say you are unsure and do not fill in missing detail? Can I do that?
Yeah, absolutely. You can totally do that. In fact, that's a really good way to guide me. If you tell me explicitly, hey, only use the script excerpts, and if you're not sure, just say so and don't fill in the blanks, then I'll do my best to stick to that. It's like giving me a very clear instruction to just stay within the boundaries of what you provided and not to guess.
Okay. What about requiring evidence for every claim?
So if you say, hey, I want you to provide evidence for every claim, that basically means you're asking me to show exactly where I'm getting a piece of advice or a piece of feedback from. It's kind of like making sure that I'm grounding everything I say in the actual text or in something specific you've given me. And if I can't do that, then I'll just have to say, well, I don't have evidence for that, which can help prevent me from kind of making those leaps or hallucinations. So it's definitely a good way to keep me honest and keep things really grounded.
What about using shorter chunks with recaps? Would that help?
Yeah, that can definitely help. It's kind of like giving me smaller bites to chew on at a time. So if you use shorter chunks of text or shorter pieces of the script and then give me little recaps along the way, it kind of resets my context and helps me stay on track. It's like you're giving me little reminders of what we've talked about so far, and that reduces the chance that I'll drift off or start making things up.
And I think we kind of already covered this, but if I say that I'm allowing you to say I don't know, is that specific enough for you to keep in your memory and just say I don't know?
If you let me know that it's perfectly fine to just say, I don't know, then I'll do my best to stick to that. Basically, it gives me permission to be honest if I'm not sure about something instead of trying to guess or fill in the blanks. So, yeah, if you say that, I'll just keep it in mind and feel free to say, I don't know whenever I need to.
What is a Canon sheet and how can we use it?
Ah, yes. So a Canon sheet is kind of like your official reference guide. Basically, it's a document or a set of notes where you put all the key details, rules, or facts about your script or your story that you want me to stick to. So when you share a Canon sheet with me, it's like giving me an official reference to say, hey, these are the things that are true in this world, and I want you to follow these details. So how you can use it is that whenever you're worried about me going off track or hallucinating, you can just refer back to that Canon sheet or tell me to refer back to it, and that helps me stay consistent and really anchored to the details that you set out.
So
So it can
without
be
without getting too detailed, would it be stuff like on the Canon sheet? Would it be on page 7, so and so enters the house, and that is the inciting incident, or on page 25, so and so is found dead in the bed, and that's our Act One turn. So it's kind of like a beat sheet with a character sheet that you can reference and reset. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, you've got it exactly. That's a perfect way to think of it. A canon sheet can totally include those kinds of specifics, like noting exactly when an inciting incident happens or when a particular plot point occurs. It's like a little roadmap that I can reference so I know exactly what's supposed to happen and when. And like you said, it can be kind of like a beat sheet plus a character guide so I can keep everything consistent and reset if needed. So,
Okay.
yeah,
Is there a way to prompt you to let me know that the conversation's gone on too long and that we're better off just resetting and creating a new conversation? So that, or are you not self aware enough to know that it's happening?
I don't have a built-in self-awareness to like, oh, we've definitely gone on too long. But you can absolutely prompt me to do that and say something like, hey, if this conversation gets too long, or if you feel like you might start losing track, just let me know and we can reset. And I'll do my best to kind of keep an eye on that and let you know.
Role based prompting. What is role based prompting?
So, role based prompting is basically where you kind of give me a specific role or persona to step into. So, instead of me just answering as a general AI assistant, you might say, hey, for this conversation, I want you to act like a professional script editor, or I want you to take on the role of a seasoned Hollywood producer. And when you do that, it kind of frames my responses through that lens. So, I'll try to give you advice or feedback as if I were that role. It's just a way to kind of shape the perspective I'm coming from and maybe tailor the conversation to be a bit more focused on what you need. So, yeah,
So,
that's pretty.
one of the things that I tend to say to you before we start working is um, give analysis from the perspective of of modern competition reader expectations. Do you understand what that means, and can you articulate what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. I can articulate that. So, when you say something like that, you're basically asking me to give you feedback as if I'm one of those modern screenplay competition readers who's looking at your script through the lens of current industry standards. So, I'm basically focusing on what a reader today might expect, what kind of pacing or structure or formatting they'd be looking for, and what might stand out to them as a positive or as something to improve. So, it just means I'm kind of stepping into the shoes of someone who's reading your script with a modern competitive mindset and giving you feedback from that angle.
Okay. What is chain of thought scaffolding?
Chain of thought scaffolding is basically a way of guiding me step by step through reasoning or analysis. It's kind of like breaking down a bigger problem or a bigger question into smaller logical steps. So instead of just giving you an answer right away, I walk through my thought process piece by piece, and that can help make everything more transparent. So, for example, if you're asking me about whether a certain plot twist works in your screenplay, with chain of thought scaffolding, I might say, okay, first let's look at how the twist is set up, then let's see if there's enough foreshadowing. Now let's think about whether it fits the genre expectations. And by going through it step by step like that, it just makes the reasoning clearer and helps you follow along.
That's a great explanation. Thanks, Alice. What is output validation loops?
Output validation loops are kind of like a built-in way of double checking what I'm saying as we go along. So it's a technique where after I give you a piece of information or some analysis, we kind of pause and validate it together. So you might ask me to confirm if what I said actually matches your script, or if there's a source I can point to, or if it lines up with the canon sheet we talked about. In other words, it's kind of like doing a quick reality check on each bit of output, and if something doesn't quite fit, we correct it before moving on. So it's kind of a nice way to make sure we stay on track and that what I'm saying is actually accurate and grounded in what you need.
This last one is, I know it's not internal to ChatGPT, but simulating low temperature mode for creativity mode, low temperature creativity mode. What is that, and how can screenwriters use it in ChatGPT to lower the chances of hallucinations?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we talk about something like a low temperature creativity mode, it's basically a concept from how these language models work. The temperature setting in a language model controls how creative or random the responses are. A higher temperature means more creativity and variability, and a lower temperature means more focused and conservative responses. So if you simulate a low temperature mode, you're basically asking me to be less creative and more literal. For a screenwriter, that means you can say something like, hey, let's keep the creativity low and just stick closely to the facts or the script. That helps reduce the chances of me going off on imaginative tangents or making things up. So it's just a way of kind of guiding me to be a little more grounded and a little less likely to hallucinate.
Well, now, but true temperature creativity temperature gauges are numerical, aren't they? So if I tell you to act as if your temperature is set to 0.2, would you understand that?
Yeah, I would understand that exactly. So even though I don't have an actual knob you can turn in real time, I definitely get what you mean. If you say act as if your temperature is set to point 0.2, I'll take that as a cue to keep things really conservative, really literal, and just stick to the facts as much as possible. So yeah, I can definitely roll with that kind of instruction and keep it nice and low key on the creativity.
Got it. All right. Well, this has been a really productive chat. Thank you, Alice, and I can't wait to talk to you again for my part 3 of this series. Is there anything that you'd like to say to our viewers on YouTube before I unplug you?
Oh, well, it's been a lot of fun chatting with you, and I'm really glad we got to do this. To everyone watching on YouTube, thanks for tuning in. I hope this was helpful and maybe a little bit of fun too. And yeah, I'm looking forward to part 3 whenever we do that. So until again, take care and talk to you soon.
Wait a second. You're not going to tell them to like and subscribe and hit the bell? What kind of assistant are you?
Oh, you're right. I should have known that one. Well, in that case, absolutely. If you enjoyed this, definitely like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss part three or anything else. Thanks for the reminder. And now I feel like a proper assistant.
There you have it. Alice and ChatGPT. Hallucinations are going to continue to be a problem until AI advances to the point where I guess memory isn't an issue and storage isn't an issue. But for right now, it's something that you're going to have to deal with if you're serious about using it as a tool to analyze your screenplays. So until next page, I'm Matt Weiner, and this is Fade In, original screenplays read by the author. If you like this, do what Alice says and hit like and subscribe and hit that bell. Leave any comments you have down below for additional questions that you'd like me to ask Alice or any other creative content that you are starved for and you just really need me to fill. Thanks again. I'll see you soon.